Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that your bed has disappeared. No mattress, no pillow, no blanket, no comfortable little corner where you can spend 8 hours pretending you're going to sleep while actually scrolling through your phone. Just you, the floor, and a very disappointing night. Sounds terrible, right? But for most of human history, a soft modern bed was basically science fiction. And here's the strange part. Humans have been sleeping for hundreds of thousands of years, but the bed you're sleeping on today is actually a very recent invention. So how did we go from sleeping on the ground to memory foam mattresses, heated blankets, adjustable beds, and pillows that somehow cost more than a small refrigerator? And more importantly, why did humans decide that a separate place just for sleeping was even necessary? To answer that, we need to go back thousands of years. Before bedrooms existed, before mattresses existed, and before anyone had the luxury of complaining that their pillow wasn't fluffy enough. Let's go back to the beginning. Around 200,000 years ago, our ancestors were already sleeping. Obviously, they didn't have alarm clocks. They didn't have bedrooms. And they definitely didn't have someone yelling, "Wake up, you're going to be late for work." Instead, sleep was simply part of surviving. When the sun went down, humans had a problem. Darkness. No electricity meant that once the sun disappeared, seeing anything became difficult. And darkness was not just inconvenient, it could be dangerous. Predators were active at night. The temperature could drop. And if you were sleeping somewhere exposed, you were basically announcing to the animal kingdom, "Hello, I am currently unconscious and extremely easy to attack." So humans had to become very good at finding safe places to sleep. Caves were useful. Sheltered areas were useful. Trees could provide protection. And eventually humans started making sleeping areas themselves. But these early sleeping surfaces weren't designed for luxury. They were designed to solve a very simple problem. Don't sleep directly on the cold, wet, dirty ground. Because the ground has bugs, the ground has moisture, the ground has rocks, and the ground has absolutely no interest in supporting your lower back. So early humans began using natural materials such as grass, leaves, bark, and animal skins to create more comfortable sleeping surfaces. And this was a much bigger invention than it might sound. Because once you lift yourself even slightly off the ground, you gain several advantages. You become warmer. You stay drier. You avoid some insects. And you become a little less attractive to certain creatures looking for an easy midnight snack. In other words, the first bed wasn't really about comfort. It was about survival. And humans kept improving the idea. Over thousands of years, people learned which plants made good bedding. Some materials were softer. Some were better at keeping insects away. Some could hold heat. And some were simply easier to collect. Eventually, humans weren't just sleeping wherever they happened to stop. They were creating dedicated sleeping areas. And this is where things get really interesting. Because once humans started making beds, they weren't just changing where they slept. They were changing how they lived. Think about it. If you create a comfortable sleeping area inside your home, you're starting to divide your living space into different functions. You have a place to cook, a place to store things, a place to sit, and a place to sleep. That sounds completely normal to us, but it represents a major change in human life. The home was becoming more than just shelter. It was becoming a space designed around daily routines. And eventually, some ancient civilizations took this idea much further. One of the best examples comes from ancient Egypt. The Egyptians didn't just sleep on the floor. Wealthier Egyptians had actual raised beds. These beds were often made from wood, with a woven surface supporting the body. And there was a very practical reason for raising the bed. The higher you were from the floor, the further away you were from dirt, insects, and some of the creatures that might decide to visit you during the night. Basically, the ancient Egyptian version of a bed was partly furniture and partly pest control. And wealthy Egyptians could take things even further. Some beds were beautifully decorated. Some had elaborate designs, and some were made with expensive materials. Because humans discovered something that we still haven't gotten over. If something is useful, eventually someone will figure out how to make it luxurious. A bed started as protection from the ground. Then it became furniture. Then it became a status symbol. And that pattern would repeat throughout history. But the Egyptians weren't the only civilization thinking about better sleep. Thousands of years later, the ancient Greeks and Romans also had raised beds. And wealthy Romans could have surprisingly comfortable sleeping arrangements. Some beds were made from wood or metal and could be decorated with expensive materials. They used mattresses filled with things like wool, feathers, or plant materials. Imagine that. Thousands of years ago, someone was already lying down at night thinking, "This feather mattress is pretty comfortable." Meanwhile, someone else was probably sleeping on the floor thinking, "Must be nice." And this difference is important. Because throughout history, how you slept often depended on how much money you had. The wealthy could afford better materials. The poor usually had to make do with whatever was available. And that means the history of the bed is also partly the history of inequality. For thousands of years, a comfortable night's sleep was not equally available to everyone. But something even more surprising was happening. Humans were beginning to think about sleep not just as something that happened to you, but as something you could improve. And that idea would eventually lead to the modern bedroom. But before we get there, we need to answer an even stranger question. If humans have always needed sleep, why didn't we simply sleep whenever we felt tired? Why did societies start creating rules around bedtime? Why did people start sleeping at specific times? And why does modern life involve something ancient humans could never have imagined? An alarm clock screaming at you at 6:30 in the morning. Because the history of the bed is actually connected to something much bigger. The history of time itself. And that's where our story gets even more interesting. So, humans had finally solved one problem. Instead of sleeping directly on the cold, dirty ground, they could make a softer and safer place to rest. But the story of the bed was far from over, because humans didn't just change where they slept, they slowly changed the entire way they experienced the night. For thousands of years, the sun was basically the world's clock. When the sun came up, people worked, hunted, traveled, cooked, and took care of their families. When the sun went down, things became much quieter. There were no electric lights, no television, and definitely no smartphones glowing beside your pillow at midnight. If you wanted to stay awake after dark, you needed fire, candles, or lamps, and these were limited compared with modern lighting. That meant darkness had a powerful influence on everyday life. Imagine living in a small village thousands of years ago. The sun disappears, the temperature drops, and the world becomes almost completely dark. You finish your work, eat with your family, talk for a while, and eventually find your sleeping place. There isn't much reason to stay awake until 3 in the morning because there is nothing to do. And this may have affected how people slept. Historical evidence suggests that in some societies, people sometimes experience sleep in 2 periods during the night. They could sleep for several hours, wake up for a while, and then return to sleep. During that quiet period, they might talk, pray, think, care for children, or simply wait until they became tired again. Of course, not everyone in history slept this way, and sleeping habits varied greatly between cultures and time periods. But it shows us something important. The modern idea of sleeping for one perfectly uninterrupted 8-hour block is not the only way humans have experienced sleep. Then came one of the biggest changes in human history: artificial light. Candles became more common, oil lamps improved, and later, gas lighting appeared. But the real revolution came with electricity. For the first time, humans could turn night into something that looked almost like daytime. You could work after sunset, read at night, travel after dark, meet friends, and stay awake much longer than your ancestors could. Humanity had finally conquered darkness, and then we used that achievement to stay awake longer. The Industrial Revolution made this even more important. Factories needed workers to arrive at specific times. Trains followed schedules. Shops opened at certain hours, and being late could have serious consequences. The clock became more powerful than ever. Instead of waking naturally with the sunrise, millions of people began waking because a clock told them to. And that is where the alarm clock became so important. Before modern schedules, waking up was often connected to daylight, work, and natural rhythms. Now, a small machine could suddenly decide that it was time to get out of bed. Your ancestors woke because the sun came up. You wake because your phone makes a horrible noise at 6:30 in the morning. Progress. At the same time, beds were becoming more comfortable and more affordable. For much of history, high-quality beds were a luxury. Wealthy people could afford better materials, decorative furniture, thick mattresses, and beautiful fabrics, while ordinary people often slept on simple surfaces filled with straw, grass, wool, or other available materials. But industrial manufacturing changed that. Factories could produce furniture, fabric, and mattresses much faster and more cheaply, allowing more people to enjoy comforts that had once been reserved for the wealthy. The mattress itself also began to change. Instead of simply using a bag filled with natural materials, people developed spring systems that could support the body more effectively. Later came foam, memory foam, and eventually the huge variety of mattresses we have today. You can now choose a mattress based on your sleeping position, body weight, temperature preference, firmness level, and probably your personality if the marketing department is feeling ambitious. But there was another important change happening at the same time. The bedroom was becoming private. For many people in the past, homes were small, and several family members might sleep in the same room. In some households, sleeping areas were shared with other members of the family or even servants. There simply wasn't enough space for everyone to have their own room. As homes became larger and living standards improved, bedrooms became more specialized and private, and the bed became the center of that private space. Today, your bedroom can tell a surprising amount about you. Your clothes are there. Your books are there. Your decorations are there. Your charger is probably there. And your phone is probably somewhere within arm's reach right now. The bedroom had transformed from a basic sleeping area into a personal environment. And this is where the modern story becomes ironic. We have better beds, cleaner bedrooms, warmer blankets, quieter homes, and more knowledge about sleep than ever before. Yet we also have more ways to stay awake. The phone beside your pillow can bring messages, videos, news, work, and entertainment into your bedroom at any hour. Our ancestors had darkness pushing them towards sleep. We have a glowing screen pulling us away from it. The bed has changed from a simple layer of grass on the ground into one of the most comfortable places humans have ever created. But the human need for sleep has barely changed. And that leaves us with one final question. After thousands of years of making sleep safer, softer, and more comfortable, have we actually become better at sleeping? Or have we simply built the world's most comfortable place to stay awake? So, after thousands of years, we finally reached the strange world of modern sleep. We have beds that can adjust themselves. We have mattresses designed with layers of foam and springs. We have pillows shaped for different sleeping positions, blankets designed to control temperature, and machines that can play sounds while we sleep. Some people even have beds that can track their heart rate, movement, breathing, and sleep stages. Compared with the first humans who curled up on leaves and grass, this is almost unbelievable. But comfort was only part of the story. The modern bed became something much bigger. It became a place for rest, privacy, entertainment, work, relationships, and sometimes, unfortunately, stress. Think about what happens when you get into bed today. You might check one message, then another. Then you watch a short video, then another one. Suddenly, 40 minutes have disappeared, and you're still staring at a screen that is bright enough to illuminate the entire room. The bed is no longer simply telling your brain, it's time to sleep. It is also saying, here is unlimited entertainment. And that creates a strange conflict. Our environment has changed faster than our biology. The human body still follows a biological clock called the circadian rhythm. Light, darkness, activity, temperature, meals, and other signals help tell the body when it should be awake and when it should prepare for sleep. But modern life can confuse those signals. Bright lights stay on long after sunset. Screens can keep our attention active. Work can continue late into the evening. Social media never closes. Messages can arrive at any hour. The ancient human problem was darkness. The modern human problem is that darkness is optional. You can walk through a city at midnight and see offices, shops, apartments, roads, signs, and screens glowing everywhere. The night has become bright, and the bed has become a place where we bring that brightness with us. But there is another reason the history of the bed is so interesting. It shows how technology doesn't always change what humans need. Sometimes it only changes how we satisfy the need. Humans have always needed somewhere safe to sleep. We still do. Humans have always wanted warmth. We still do. Humans have always wanted protection from insects, animals, cold, moisture, and uncomfortable surfaces. We still do. The difference is that we have built increasingly complicated solutions to very old problems. A pile of grass became a mattress. A piece of wood became a bed frame. A fire became central heating. A candle became an electric light. A rooster became an alarm clock. And eventually, a simple sleeping place became an entire industry. Today, the global mattress industry sells products promising deeper sleep, better support, cooler nights, fewer aches, and improved comfort. Some of these innovations are genuinely useful. Others are probably examples of humans discovering that we are willing to spend a surprising amount of money trying to get one thing we cannot buy directly: sleep. You can buy the mattress. You can buy the pillow. You can buy the sheets. You can buy the blackout curtains. You can buy the white noise machine. You can buy the sunrise alarm. But you still have to close your eyes. And that brings us back to the beginning. The first humans who slept on the ground didn't understand sleep science. They didn't know about circadian rhythms, sleep cycles, or the role of light. They simply became tired and looked for somewhere safe. That basic instinct is still inside us. Even after thousands of years of invention, the final step is remarkably simple. We lie down, we close our eyes, and we wait for the brain to take over. Modern sleep technology can measure what happens next with incredible detail. Smartwatches can estimate when you fall asleep. Sensors can detect movement. Medical devices can monitor breathing. Sleep laboratories can record brain activity and track the different stages of sleep. We can now see things that our ancestors could never have imagined. But knowing more does not always make sleeping easier. In fact, sometimes it creates a new problem. You can wake up after 7 hours, look at your phone, and discover that your sleep score was only 82. Suddenly, instead of simply feeling rested, you're wondering why your score wasn't 90. The machine designed to help you sleep has given you something else to worry about. This is one of the great ironies of modern life. We have become incredibly good at measuring sleep, but many people are still struggling to get enough of it. And perhaps that tells us something important. The history of the bed is not really a history of furniture. It is a history of human priorities. We wanted safety, so we raised ourselves off the ground. We wanted warmth, so we added blankets in better rooms. We wanted comfort, so we created mattresses. We wanted privacy, so we created bedrooms. We wanted control, so we created clocks and alarms. We wanted convenience, so we put technology beside the bed. And now, perhaps we are beginning to realize that convenience can have a cost. The modern bedroom is incredibly comfortable. But comfort alone does not guarantee rest. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your sleep is surprisingly old-fashioned. Turn off the light. Put away the screen. Let the room become quiet. And go to bed. No app required. No subscription required. No futuristic mattress required. Just sleep. And that may be the strangest part of the whole story. We change the bed again and again, but we never change the need that brought us to it. Tonight, when you climb under the blanket, remember that you are taking part in a ritual older than cities, clocks, and technology. The bed changed. Humans changed. But sleep stayed. And maybe that is why the bed remains one of our greatest inventions.